Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the CHALL, and today Chall Chats Theme Parks. And as you might have seen by the title, yes, we're going to be analysing Dorney Park's brand new 2024 roller coaster, Iron Menace. We're also going to have Dorney's Public Relations and Communications Manager, Ryan Eldredge, on this show. So stay tuned for the interview. The time frames for each individual bit of this video will be in the description down below. So if you want to go to a specific time, if you want to go straight to the interview, go to the analysis of the ride, then you can go and do so. So before we get started, make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you never miss a YouTube video. Get your popcorn and your Coke ready because this is going to be a big one. We're talking the history of the site. We'll be talking about the ride, the stats of the ride. We'll talk about the interview with Ryan about the whole process behind Iron Menace. We're going to talk about my thoughts on this as well. So let's not waste another second. We're on our way to 500,000 views. We're on our way to 3K subscribers. Go and subscribe. Go and check out the other videos. Stay tuned for more. Let's not waste another second here. Let's get straight into this one. Let's first of all talk about the history of the site in question. So then, obviously, we know that Iron Menace is coming to the park next year, but what sat on that site before Iron Menace? For those of you who don't know much about the previous history of this coastal location. So this is replacing Stinger. This was formerly known as Invertigo at California's Great America. So this is a Vekoma Invertigo. So if you think of the old Vekoma boomerangs, but basically an inverted style, or the Vekoma giant inverted boomerangs, but maybe not as giant. Now then, this will also involve a slight reroute and a slight overhaul of the Zephyr train ride, a gas-electric train designed after the Pioneer Zephyr, the first steamline train, that takes riders on a scenic trip around the park. So those two rides are going to be the most affected. I think Zephyr train ride, I think there's some kind of rerouting going on or something to do with the Zephyr train ride. There'll definitely be some kind of overhaul and play into the story with this ride. But the removal of the Stinger was already confirmed years ago. It was announced back at the end of December that ride was going to go. On December the 15th, 2017. It was scrapped before the start of the 2018 season. So yeah, the Stinger was removed for this project. Now, of course, we knew that there was previous plans for a different project on that site that could have affected the Possessed Inverted Impulse roller coaster by Intamin. However, those plans were shelved and probably subsequently scrapped by now for that particular location, as we now have this Iron Menace coaster coming next year instead. So those the old plans of I think there was talk of the Switchback style wooden coaster and the original plan back in 2020, 2021. However, that plan, with the opening of Iron Menace next year, it's subsequently been scrapped for that location. Whether that comes back in a different location, I don't know. But for this location, those plans have been scrapped in favour of this new roller coaster. Now then, before the Stinger, if you want to go even further back on the history of the park, this was occupied by another roller coaster between 1986 and 2008. This was Laser, and this was a Schwarzkopf double looping roller coaster, which last operated as Test Trek at Wiener Plata in Austria from March until autumn 2019, before travelling last time operated, to the Riyadh Winter Wonderland in Saudi Arabia from October 2019 to March 2020. Now, we don't know what has happened to that ride since. Now then, we have to now look at the backstory of the ride that's coming into this site next year, the mystery behind the Menace, as the park would describe it. In the early 1900s, Scottish businessman Hiram S. McTavish opened McTavish Steel Mill, a direct competitor to Bethlehem Steel Company. Greed dictated McTavish's every move, and he was well known to prioritise profits above people. With an eye on maximising output, McTavish created a massive hauler he dubbed Iron Menace, a device the steel industry had never seen. The rail transporter moved workers and ore at record volumes and dizzying speeds. Suddenly, the greed steel baron mysteriously disappeared. No one knows how or where. Shortly after McTavish Steel Mill closed, all that remains today are the mill's decrepit shell, rusty relics and wild tales of the owner's whereabouts. very, very heavy on the storyline. And I think the storyline, the story, the heaviness of the storyline and the effect on the riders is going to be very, very felt at Dorney Park next year. I mean, I think they redid their Enigma maze for the Halloween Haunt around the storyline around this as well. So, you know, they definitely played into that a bit during Halloween Haunt, and, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how Dorney Park really, you know, goes full effect on this for the coaster. Now then, here's some stats that you may or may not know about this particular project. Iron Menace will be the Northeast's first ever Bolliger and Mabillard dive roller coaster, and the first dive roller coaster ever in the Northeast, opening in 2024, and it will be Dorney Park's first coaster in 19 years. Riders of Iron Menace will start their exhilarating journey in the remains of an old steel mill, then climb 160 feet, where they'll hang over the beyond vertical first drop before diving into the first of 4 mind-bending inversions. With nearly 2,200 feet of steel track, this awe-inspiring roller coaster will feature a unique hold and dive element, where riders will find themselves hanging on the edge of their seats, breathlessly awaiting the heart-pounding 95-degree, 152-foot drop. With speeds up to 64 miles per hour, Iron Menace will boast the first ever tilted loop on a dive coaster. After the initial beastly drop, the train will pull up sharply and flip 180 degrees into an Immelman inversion. A zero-G roll will dish out a 360-degree inversion in wild weightlessness, while the tilted loop and 360-degree corkscrew spin will leave riders wondering which way is up. So you saw there some promotional stuff and some construction pictures and videos from track delivery, track construction, some renderings and concept arts from the ride, all sent over via email by Dorney Park. So thank you very much to Dorney Park themselves for sending all of that stuff over. It really means a lot for me to be able to use it in this video. But now we've spoken about what to expect on this ride and the history behind the location of the ride, we need to find out more about the process in creating the idea of Iron Menace. So let's speak to Ryan Eldredge, the Public Relations and Communications Manager at Dorney Park. So we are here with Ryan Eldredge, the Public Relations and Communications Manager for Dorney Park. Ryan, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Thank you so much for reaching out. It's a privilege to talk to you across the pond, and I'm glad you share our enthusiasm about roller coasters and the Iron Menace.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to this project opening in 2024. So firstly then, obviously this is a Bolliger and Mabillard dive coaster. It's the Northeast first dive coaster in ever. What made the decision to bring in a Bolliger and Mabillard dive coaster? Because there's no secret that there were previous plans that were around 2020, 2021. What made the decision to go with the Bolliger and Mabillard and the situation behind the change in plans?
So I know you're referencing the out and back that we had originally planned, which was really conceptualized pre-COVID, pre-pandemic. So that a lot of the work on that in terms of getting the proper approvals from our township, which is South Whitehall here in Pennsylvania. We did a lot of that in 2018 and 2019. So the project would have moved forward in 2020, but then the world kind of shut down. And when we came out of it, we had a new leadership structure. Things had shifted dynamically from a business climate. And I think maybe the biggest thing that happened was that we had a new general manager and new vice president, Jessica Naderman, who had come to us from Schlitterbahn. And with that came a lot of other department heads changing. And the group that's here now, which also includes myself, we felt very passionately that we needed to find a ride that represented the Lehigh Valley. And for us, and it's not very different from where you're at either, but there are areas, specifically in the Northeast, that have a very rich industrial history. The Lehigh Valley is one of those. We really relied on steel manufacturing in the early 1900s, and so a lot of remnants of that industry, because it doesn't thrive anymore here, still exist, and you can still see a lot of it, whether it's in Bethlehem or Allentown or elsewhere, even some of the surrounding communities. So we felt really passionately that not only did we need to move into dynamic theming, but we needed to have a ride that was representative of something that felt like home. Because we think Dorney Park is kind of like when you come to grandma's. It's like home. The furniture may change a little bit, but it still feels, eclectic or neighborly, right? So when we started looking at some of the manufacturers that we had basically said, here's the projects, here is the plot, and we want something that's going to draw eyeballs from 78, which is a major highway here, and we want something that's going to be a game changer in the Northeast. And B&M had come to us with this idea of a dive coaster, and when we started getting the elements of theming, steel just made so much more sense than wood. And with that, we kind of started to work with our director of creative development, Ken Parks, who's with Cedar Fair. And he also felt very strongly that we should lean into like those rich industrial roots, which have elements of kind of suspense and creepy now that it's a lot of these buildings have sat dilapidated for 100 years, but then also leading into like that rich pride that we have in the Northeast. And we think that this taps into both those things. So looking at the footprint, knowing what that was going to be, knowing some potential manufacturers who were able to kind of pitch their ideas to us, and then knowing B&M, we have such a great relationship with them here at Dorney Park, whether it's Talon or Hydra specifically are the two that we've worked very closely with them, but also Cedar Fair, a number of rides that B&M has built from the ground up for the company. So we felt very comfortable with them coming in here and being able to work with them, definitely given the history. And so all of it just kind of started to, it's like when you get a ball rolling and you can just kind of start it to feel it going downhill and picking up steam. And by the end, it just felt like a home run and, or a goal or whatever you want to call it. And so we just felt that for us, this was the right decision. And as time goes on, I feel even more strongly that we're making the right call here with this dive roller coaster.
Obviously, we know that the main attraction that's been replaced with Iron Menace is obviously the Stinger roller coaster that was formerly known as Invertigo at California's Great America. Historic ride, historic coaster concept by Vekoma back in the day.
Yeah.
What helped make the decision to say goodbye to the Stinger? Was it a case of change of direction for the park in the end? Because obviously it was a few years since the demolishment of Stinger to bring in Iron Menace. So was there a factor which helped provide the location for the coaster? Was it an idea of replacing Stinger straight away with this ride, or was there other locations being potentially hinted for the project?
First of all, when Stinger had a number of maintenance issues, which just made it almost impossible to maintain and keep running at a level that our guests expected. So that's why, we made the move away from that specific ride. Quickly thereafter, though, because it was removed in 2017 or after the 2017 season, plans were already moving to utilize that space. And that's for a number of reasons. One, its visibility from the main parking area and the main guest entrance parking area. So where they come to park, literally, if they look out their driver's side window, they see that plot. But then also, you can see it very clearly from Hamilton Boulevard, which is the main roadway in, Lincoln Avenue, another main roadway, and then 78, which is the major interstate. So once again, I talked about visibility being a critical component, but also another reason why we like that area so much is because we want to drive attendance down to some of our larger attractions at the bottom of the park. And so it's always been this desire to put in major or new capital down there. And, unfortunately for one reason or another, Stinger didn't work and, Laser wasn't working anymore. And so Possessed, while it drives maybe incremental attendance, wasn't quite the mover that I think we ultimately wanted. So we wanted to get something new down there that can drive people to Steel Force and Revolution and Thunderhawk and Possessed. And we think that not only this ride, but the theming that goes along with it will do that. And so it gets people into the classic Dorney Park area that runs along Cedar Creek. It gets them kind of to move down the hill a little bit. It kind of expands our footprint. And then once again, it just got a very clearly identifiable plot that people are going to see really well. And, we do have a lot of space here. We looked at other spaces, but I think everybody's always felt really strongly that if we can utilize that space properly, it's going to benefit us greatly, not only because of the sight lines, but also because of the creek and being able to utilize some of the more natural scapes. Our nickname actually was the natural spot for a long time. So we want to give folks from specifically Philadelphia, New York, but also other cities around the world, a place where they can come. And we've got that natural greenery and those landscapes and the ducks and the geese and the fish. And this will allow us to kind of highlight that area as well.
The name, Iron Menace. I mean, there's been many great Cedar Fair names throughout the years, like Steel Vengeance being a primary example. But Iron Menace just sticks out in an intense, forgery way. It's sort of it creates this massive storyline just from the name itself. Was Iron Menace the original name? And again, was there any other names considered that we could go into today?
So we had a full naming process. I think at one point, I mean, there were probably dozens of names, but we ended up getting it down to maybe a list of a little over 20. Whittled that list of 20 down to I think about 5. There were some too that, like, everybody, you're just kind of throwing paint at the wall, and there were some that we have a good laugh about now, but we got the 20 down to 5, and then we took it through. You got to go through trademark and copyright and all that stuff. And once we got through the 5, we had 2 left. It was Iron Inferno or Iron Menace, and dynamically we felt like Menace connected better to the overall story. I will say that I loved both those names, so at that point I didn't really feel like we could go too wrong with it, especially when you're talking about emulating a blast furnace, which is where you dump the iron into a hot fire and you get steel out of it, right? So Inferno would have worked too, but those 2 names at the end of the day, I think were perfectly situated, and we ended up landing on Menace. So there were other cool names too. I mean, everybody always likes to invoke birds, so there were different names with birds. I'm trying to think. It's like the kingfisher, which is a bird that dives. It's got a really beautiful blue orange plumage. That was, I think, one of the final 5. There was another name with iron that escapes me, and then there was a name with steel. And I don't think the steel name slipped. I don't think it made it through trademark anyway, but I remember that the park team was pretty adamant that we didn't move forward with anything steel just because of Steel Force. We felt pretty strongly that it should be iron. And at the end of the day, you work through all that stuff. And I think we had a great team, not just at the park, but also our Cedar Fair corporate team has been fantastic in this and really allowing us to find our voice regionally. And Iron Menace, man. And like the more it goes on, it's like the more I become attached to it. I think it's the perfect name for this ride.
So obviously we know that track has sort of been starting to go vertical at the moment as we're recording this. We know that construction's been picking up nice and quick. We're getting this ride ready for 2024. How excited are you for Dorney's first coaster in 19 years? Such a duck to break, and what a time, and what a type of coaster to do it with.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'll make it personal first. So I grew up around here, and I can remember the days of the late 90s and early 2000s where it was like the great coaster race, and Dorney Park was putting in talent, and Steel Force was the king, and you're adding Hydra, and there's just so much happening in the park. And I remember the buzz and the life that was here when I was coming here as a child, and it was just exciting to be at Dorney Park in the early 2000s. And flash forward, you go 19 years and you don't get anything, and it's kind of like we were the butt of jokes. There's a lot of like, yeah, Dorney Park, but they haven't gotten anything new in 19 years. Or like, I'm not going to go to Dorney Park until they get something new. So to kind of get that monkey off of our back, I think is really special. And once again, I'll stay with the personal. But for me, like, I just feel like it's almost like what a lucky idiot. There have been so many people that have been in this role before me that have not had this opportunity, that have not had the chance to oversee an investment like this and to play an integral part in the naming and the theming and have a say in the teaser campaign and the trailers and build off of that into the haunt, and now be out here and filming the construction of this thing. I feel so blessed to be here, especially somebody who grew up and loves the park and loves the industry. It's I mean, some days it's a little overwhelming. You go home and you're like, I cannot believe that I'm here for this after 19 years of really nothing of this magnitude. From the park, I'll just say that it's a lot of the same. A lot of folks just, I think, feel blessed to be a part of something special. One of the things I noticed too is, I won't say the energy was negative. It's just neutral. And then you see something like this happen, and the amount of electricity and positivity that it inserted into our team and our guests in August was like palatable. Like, you'd go out in the park and you could feel and sense the energy, and we could see attendance went up on weekends where it didn't rain. We had a lot of rain here in September and October. When it didn't rain, there was so much energy in the park and out in the community, and the news media is talking to us, and coming out here and doing stories, and we're getting to talk to people like you who maybe we haven't had a shot to talk to for one reason or another. So it's been really exciting, and I think for us it's a special time, and the real I think the real big thing now is when folks get into this park next year is to make sure that they have a good time and that they want to come back in 2025 or again later in 2024. So that's our driving goal, and my motivation is always to provide an atmosphere that's positive and that folks can have fun and relax and unplug from life. And I think certainly this will get people back in a park that I feel really passionately is a really good escape from reality.
Massive thank you there to Ryan Eldredge, the Public Relations and Communications Manager at Dorney Park, for those kind words during that massive interview. Now then, let's share my thoughts on Iron Menace. Now then, the idea, first of all, of a Bolliger and Mabillard dive coaster coming to the United States is obviously very, very exciting news for the theme park community and for the general public as well. Like I said, this is the Northeast first dive coaster. So, you know, this will be a bit of a unique experience for that side of the region, that side of the country. And I think Dorney Park's really going to pull this off. And if there's ever a way to break a 19-year duck on a roller coaster investment, B&M dive coaster, off the record, brilliant. Now then, the storyline of this steel mill, McTavish steel mill, and the closing after the creation of this beast, this Iron Menace, you know, which forced out workers and it set record volumes in terms of what their intended targets and objectives were. The closure of the mill, the derelict shell of its former self standing there as you're walking through to experience Iron Menace. I just have a really good gut feeling and a really intense gut feeling that the theming and the storyline will be heavily, heavily impactful. As soon as you enter that queue line, as soon as you're on the station platform, as soon as you're ready to board those Bolliger and Mabillard dive coaster trains, I just think it's going to impact you from the second you enter that area of the park in terms of the effect of the storyline, the heaviness of the story, and also the quality of storytelling within this roller coaster. And that's the big thing for me here. People know already if they've seen multiple videos from previously from me. I love a storytelling experience on a roller coaster or even a kids ride. You know, I'll use this as an example, right? In the Night Garden, I know immediately that's a decent family ride. Why? Because immediately it takes you into the story of this children's TV series on CBeebies, In the Night Garden. You have Iggle Piggle, you have Makapaka, you have all these different characters, and immediately it takes you through every single character in every single scene with the audio, and it's a relaxing boat ride that brings you into the TV show and then exits you out the TV show at the right time. When all the effects are working, it works to an absolute T for a kids attraction. Same with roller coasters. Oblivion. I've said in previous recent years that Oblivion, after Nemesis at Alton Towers, should be the next one to get this kind of refurbishment program where it gets retracked, gets new heavy storyline in. Look at Nemesis. I look at Oblivion as well, but obviously Oblivion had this idea of don't look down. You're into this facility. You know, testing fear levels, mental reactions, physical reactions to the state of falling and free falling. That was the original dive coaster in 1998 here in the UK. So that was the one that kind of started off the dive coaster trend. So without Oblivion, we might not have had Iron Menace. So, you know, Oblivion's kind of like the originator and the pioneer of the dive coaster. Nemesis, you've got to look at what's happening there at the moment at Alton Towers with Nemesis for next year. With this refurbishment and the idea of the Phalanx storyline. Again, storytelling impacts a ride experience and it brings the guests in of all ages, whether it's a kids ride, a family ride, a thrill ride, or a roller coaster. It brings everybody in to that area of the park and it really puts their focus fully on that area. And I've got a terrific gut feeling here about Iron Menace that will do the same as Nemesis will do, as Oblivion has done, as the family rides in Alton Towers have done, as many other rides have done. You know, Icon Dare to Ride, The Swarm at Thorpe Park, Taron at Phantasialand, Fly at Phantasialand. You know, all these different rides in Europe and around the world, you know, bring these people in. Finally, the logo. I've got to talk about the logo. Looks fantastic. Steel, rustic, has a real vintage feel. Got to love it. In summary, Iron Menace is a truly sensational, thrilling ride experience for 2024, and I really can't wait to experience this at some point in the future. So thank you very much, guys, for watching this massive, massive, massive video on Iron Menace at Dorney Park. A thank you to Dorney Park for all the promotional and media footage sent over for the video. A massive, massive thank you to Ryan Eldredge, the Public Relations and Communications Manager at Dorney Park, for appearing in this video. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe. We've got plenty more news updates and other videos going on throughout the rest of this week. And for now, guys, I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now.